So, let's talk about the murders of Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. So, this story starts with a kind of an investigation on the end of Eddie and Chris. You see, the lads were veterans in the business. They had worked with WCW, they had worked with other promotions, they had been on the road, and they were used to keeping up with the best of them, not just in the ring, but they were used to keeping up in terms of drinking with the old guard, the guys like Rick and guys like Taker, and these guys they would match these guys drink for drink, nearly pint for pint, shot for shot, whiskey for whiskey. They could keep up with the best of them. All of a sudden, the new guys show up. It's the early 2000s and the new guys show up. The freaks, Brock Lesnar and, guys like that. Him in particular, though. And now all of a sudden, when Eddie and Chris are out drinking with the boys, after 3-4 beers, they're puking. Or they're having to be carried away and put into hotel rooms. Like having to be carried off to bed after 3-4 pints. That was so weird because a week previous, it was the young boys, it was the likes of Brock that would be getting sick or making a fool of themselves in front of the veterans and all that kind of thing. All of a sudden, Chris and Eddie can't hold their liquor at all. So this is where it comes in where people say, oh, Chris Benoit was paranoid before he died. Chris was paranoid. The reason why they say that is because Chris started accusing the boys of putting something in his drink and in Eddie's drink. He didn't know whether they were dropping ecstasy tabs in there, if they were fucking putting Spanish fly in there, if it was some kind of, oh, we don't want little guys near. Like, he had no idea what it was, but he knew something was happening. He knew that all of a sudden him and his best friend couldn't go from being... Because here's what they did. They decided, you know what, how come this keeps happening when we're around the boys? Chris was accusing people of things. They were calling Chris crazy. So Eddie and Chris went out 2 or 3 different nights and drank just the two of them. And they were able to put away like 11 fucking beers, whatever it was. They were able to put away their usual amount. It wasn't that age had slowly crept up on them. How come anytime they were around the boys, the other wrestlers, when they went out for a drink, how come they always ended up either puking or being put in a hotel room and someone having to check their breathing? How come that happened every time they were around the boys, but not when they went out drinking, just them or with anyone else? They couldn't figure this out. And this moment is what led to their deaths. Because there's certain shit, even if they wipe your memory, you can't forget. You see, the other wrestlers, the boys, they didn't know that Eddie and Chris had went out by themselves to prove this to themselves, that they knew something was going on. So they hatched a plan. Sorry, Eddie and Chris hatched another plan after that. What they did was, they waited until the boys were going out. Sorry, that's the wrestling term, is the boys means all the guys in the back, okay? All the wrestlers, they go out drinking together. They waited until they were in a town where that's known as a drinking town, one where the boys are guaranteed to go out and hit a few different bars. And what they did was, they waited for them in the 3rd bar they usually go to. So whenever they're in this town, they start off in, let's say they start off in Murphy's, and then they go to O'Reilly's, and then they finish up in the Crown Bar, we'll say, okay? So what Eddie and Chris did was, when the boys left for the first pub, they went to the 3rd one, the final one. And they started on sodas. And they said, okay, we are going to fucking wait here. We're not having a drink until those motherfuckers walk in the door. And then we'll have one. And we're going to act drunk the entire time. So as soon as, even before they walk in, even including the barman, say it's a part, they got the barman in on this and said it was a prank against the boys, and you know what I mean? They really came up with a plan for this. And lo and behold, the boys came in. Brock's with them, of course. They've had a few already. They're all giggly, a bit red-faced. Eddie and Chris straight into acting. They're acting Swayze. They're acting, kind of like stumbling and real, they're playing up that fucking drunk character. Within 20-something minutes of the other wrestlers joining them in that bar, Eddie was slurring his words, and Chris was feeling like he was going to throw up. They hadn't had a drink yet. But the problem was, none of the boys had come anywhere near them. None of the boys had touched their glass. So Eddie lost it. What the fuck are you motherfuckers doing? What is going on here, man? Eddie freaked out. And that marked the beginning of the end for Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. That marked the beginning of the end. Because even though these bastards can wipe your memory, even though they can beguile you, they can make you feel what they feel. They can feel what you feel. They can hear your thoughts. But they can also use you as a scapegoat for their own pissant emotions. So if an insecure cunt like Brock Lesnar didn't want to be seen thrown up in front of the boys, the likes of Taker and these other big fucking lizards and Vince McMahon, King Lizard himself. We're going to get into Vince and the Jedi mind trick. A reptile beguiling. It's what they do. But yeah, we're going to get into all that. But this is what marked the beginning of the end for Chris and Eddie. Because even though their memories were wiped in X, Y, and Z, this is still stuff you would not forget. They would remind each other. They would stay really close knit to each other. Like, this is when they started getting accusations of, the boys thought they were gay. No, they weren't gay, and the boys fucking knew that. They were the only two humans in a room full of reptiles. Hey, Kevin Owens is currently injured. Do you know why Kevin Owens is injured? It's not because his wrestling career finally crept up on him, whether he realizes it or not. Kevin Owens is injured for one reason and one reason only. He said something he shouldn't have. He might not know who got him. I don't know who hit him or who fucked him up. I don't. Maybe he does. But he said something he shouldn't. He said some guys feel weird in the ring. They are weirdly heavy, and when they put their hands on you, you only ever feel 3 fingers on either side. Kevin Owens said that somewhere. I can't remember if it was to a fan, if it was in an interview. Can't find it online. But he said that, and then boom, he's out with injuries and he might never wrestle again. That's what these fuckers do. So in terms of Chris and Eddie kept reminding Chris. Chris kept forgetting. Chris just kept forgetting. Eddie kept reminding him of what happened that night and how, no man, they couldn't have put anything in our drinks. Maybe that shit you were saying about these Nephilim, these reptiles is right, but they couldn't have put something in our drinks because we were drinking sodas and we had our hands on them the whole time. They came in drunk and all of a sudden we felt what they felt. How did they do that, and how have they been doing that? You want more evidence? There's a famous clip out there, and every Eddie Guerrero or Brock Lesnar fan will know it when I say it. Eddie Guerrero goes out there drunk, emotional. He breaks Brock. Why do you think that happened? Eddie got drunk backstage with the intention of, I need to make myself absolutely distraught. I need to go out there suicidal. Because if they can feel what I can feel, I want to prove it. How do I prove it? Well, Brock seems to be the one that was puking and making a show of himself, and now all of a sudden it's us doing it. And when Eddie screamed at them in the bar, accusing them of things, they all got mad at Brock. They all looked at Brock. And Chris noticed that too. So now they knew who was kind of responsible, right? Or at least they thought they did. It was Eddie versus Brock. Eddie goes out there drunk. He has a microphone in his hand. Brock is in the ring. And Eddie's crying. Literally distraught. Now, Brock Lesnar at the time, guys, wasn't playing an emotional, sweet kind of guy who would care for his friend or care for the other wrestler. Brock was playing what Brock Lesnar is, a big unstoppable beast. No emotions, just a monster. Watch that clip. Go online and watch that clip. And you tell me what you think is happening in that clip. Eddie did that on purpose and he was killed for it. Eddie got drunk before that show. I know you can argue he did it on purpose as part of that plan, so he would be so emotional, he would break down, and he was trying to trigger Brock. And he did. If you watch that clip, Brock is crying hysterically like a baby. And Eddie isn't even really making that much sense. That's the real reason Eddie Guerrero not only got sent home, but was killed. He was killed. The lads would not let this go, and Eddie wouldn't let it go. He kept reminding Chris, and they were interfering with Chris's mind. That's why Chris would, Benoit, he would lash out backstage. He would freak the fuck out backstage. They were interfering with his mind every time he would try to remember something that Eddie had told him, or when he would think about things like, how come when these guys grab me I only feel 3 fingers? How come dude is so up heavy here? But like, what's going on? That's what was happening to Chris. They were constantly trying to beguile him into forgetting, and Eddie wouldn't let it happen. Because Eddie and Chris had not only proven it twice by going out drinking by themselves, they had proven it another time going out drinking with the boys when they set him up that time, and they proved it a 4th time when Eddie went out there and tricked Brock. Because Brock was using the humans he was in the ring with. He was using their stamina and their endurance. That's another thing. Eddie and Chris were noticing that certain guys they were wrestling in the ring were harder to wrestle. What do I mean? I mean that how come I can jog 10 miles on Monday with Tom, but on Tuesday with Mike I could only jog 5 miles? That's what they kept noticing. It wasn't just the drinking. It wasn't just the drinking. They noticed that some guys, being in the ring with them was like wrestling a fucking leech. It was like they were sapping your energy to keep them going, to keep them from, as they say in the business, blowing up, huffing and puffing, running out of breath, and your wrestling moves looking like shit. He had noticed that. Eddie had noticed that. So he tricked, sorry for scratching my knee in the middle of this. So he tricked Brock that time. He got sent home. That's the real reason he got sent home. But now it had them questioning everything. Because there were certain times where Eddie or Chris or whoever, one of the human fellas, was backstage before a show, and all of a sudden they felt either coked up or drunk or sick, or like just they felt something hit them like, hang on a minute, I haven't done any drugs, I haven't had a drink today, why the fuck am I? It's because one of the reptiles was pissed out of their mind, didn't want the boss to know it, and used one of us as a scapegoat. That's the unfortunate thing. It's not just that they can feed off you, they can make you take some of their fucking burden. And that's what really happened to Eddie. Eddie Guerrero. I didn't see exactly what happened, but I know who did kill him. Maybe he just hit him so hard in the chest that his heart collapsed. I don't know. I don't know how he did it. It doesn't matter. The fact is that Eddie saw him in the room and begged him not to do it, and he still did it. As for Chris, I honestly don't fully know what happened to Chris. I imagine that it was the same thing, because he's too closely connected to the murder of Eddie Guerrero to not have been done into. Is there a chance that Chris Benoit, I don't know, lost his mind and killed his family? Maybe. I don't see it that way. Is there a chance that he found out that his family were reptilian or hybrids or weren't even his original family and then went and killed them? Maybe. I could maybe see that. If you like, it's like a changeling, right? If you went home and your kid wasn't your kid anymore and it was hissing at you with a fucking tail, what happened to my kid? I ate it. Well, you might You know, maybe. But I personally, I'm of the belief that he was murdered the same way Eddie was murdered. That's what I believe happened, because I saw most of it. And we're going to get into more after this video. I'm going to do one about one of the most grueling stories I've ever heard in pro wrestling history. Because this is the thing, as much as I hate these creatures, these ghouls, these reptilians, these Nephilim, these fallen, whatever you want to call them, as much as I hate them, they're not all evil, firstly, and secondly, a lot of them are at the mercy of the hierarchy of their kind. So a lot of the decent ones are unfortunately quite powerless in defense against the higher ups. So my next video is going to be a doozy, but yeah, I'm getting to that. It's yeah, they can replace each other. If your life looks too good to one of them, they can take it. They can walk in your bones. They'll take your whole family. So Kevin, I've got that video is coming up. I haven't done it yet, but I'm doing it. And the other one, I'm doing an expose on reptilians in WWE. I'm going to do a full video on that, because the clique is very funny. We want to talk about the clique anyway.